Hello and welcome to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics impacting seniors and their families. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton, and I'm joined today by Denise Gambrell, who's an Adult Protective Services investigator with Montgomery County, and Alana Davidson, who's here to share with us her experience that she had gone through with her mom, who had been scammed recently. Thank you both for being here. And I want to take this opportunity to get a little bit of background, Denise, about what it is that you do in your position as an Adult Protective Services investigator.
Well, one of the things that we investigate is financial exploitation, which is essentially the abuse of a vulnerable adult by depriving them of their money or personal property. So if we get a report of that, we will go out to the home of that person, sometimes alone. I'm a social worker, sometimes with a nurse, and we'll do a full assessment to try to see what's going on. If we see risk factors and we hear things that set off alarms in our head, we're going to do some further assessment and work, and we're going to try to resolve that situation to keep that person safe.
What are some of those alarms that might go off?
If there's unusual banking activity, if the person has made very quick decisions about some sort of investment or using their money in some way, some unusual way, if they have suddenly become socially isolated, they change their patterns of family and personal relationships. Those are some of the main things.
And they allow you to review their records, or do you have
they frequently do not allow us to review their records because people that are being financially exploited, if they know it, they're very ashamed to let anybody else know it. And if they don't know it, they see no reason why we would want to look into all these things. So you have to try to form a relationship with them and develop some rapport so that they'll begin to let you explore these things.
So do you oftentimes find yourself going out to people's homes on more than one occasion to be able to build that relationship with them?
And sometimes even before they'll let us in the door.
Mm-hmm. Is there any court intervention that would allow you to be able to do that more efficiently?
If I meet a person at the door and I look at them and I talk to them for however little time that might be, and they do not appear to have any problem with their mental capacity, in other words, they seem like they can do their day-to-day activities and take care of themselves, they look physically okay, there's really nothing that I can do except that what they say, which is no.
What are some examples of financial exploitation that you've experienced? And then after that, I'd like, Alana, for you to share how your mom was exploited.
People are often exploited by their families, unfortunately. That's probably statistically the greatest number of cases, people exploited by family members. But they're also exploited by strangers who they meet in the grocery store, at the dry cleaners, wherever, at the bus stop, who then insinuate themselves into their lives. They are also exploited by telemarketers, by people who send them direct mail, and by people who engage in sweetheart scams and start to have a relationship with the person and persuade them that they're in love with them, and thereby get access to their money and property.
Well, I know you and I met more recently because a woman who came to me as a client, her mom was scammed.
Right.
And that's how I was able to have the fortunate experience of meeting you and learning about all the great work that you're doing. Share a little bit, obviously, without not going into the names, but what happened in that situation, and then we'll get to Alana.
Well, what happened in that situation is Mom had a lot of financial resources. She had some very lovely things in a condo that she owned. She had worked all her life, and it was very obvious that she was responding to direct mail, and she was giving away a lot of her money. And she did sit down and talk with me very cooperatively and gave me the name of her next of kin, which was her daughter. And when I called her daughter, we had a long conversation about it, and I told her of my fears of what might happen if her mother continued to engage with these people. And Mom did not seem at all aware that there was anything wrong with this. what I basically told the daughter was I was so concerned about her mother that either my office would be taking legal action or I would ask her to take legal action to protect her. And she opted for the latter, and she contacted you.
Yeah, and fortunately we were able to step in to make sure that it didn't continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately I know that there was a great loss. And I want to bring up something that just came in the mail to me coincidentally today when you talk about direct mail. I mean, I myself received in the mail just today, fortuitous timing, a letter that is with an envelope that looks very legitimate from Home Depot, with a check that has a logo on it that looks like Guess,
Mm-hmm.
that looks like a legitimate check. And I had to read this, I have to say, a couple of times myself. And it's frightening. So I just thought it was interesting timing to have gotten this, because I hadn't gotten one before.
Yeah.
So, Alana, thank you again for being here and to share your experience with your mom having gone through this. It means a lot, and I think it's going to be helpful for people to be aware of the fact that these are real things happening to real people. So if you could tell us a little bit about your mom and how
Well, as Denise was talking about this wonderful woman, I mean, my heart just dropped to my feet because I began to relive what my sister, there are two of us, two daughters in our family, and one of the points, as I tell the story, I want to emphasize is that scamming seniors cuts across all education levels, all socioeconomic levels. It happens to so many, no matter where they are, at what point in their lives. And our mother was one of the pioneers in our world. We call it direct mail. Many people call it junk mail, but to us it was direct mail. And she was a very successful business person. And when she became late 70s, early 80s, she lost her ability to judge direct mail in the sense that she felt that it was her responsibility to open everything that came into her house and respond to it. So you can imagine how many then the exponential
Yes.
mail that she began to get and the exponential opportunities to be scammed. And she would respond to these scams, not believing that they were scams, because when she was in direct mail, there weren't scams like this, and she was an honest person. So she couldn't imagine the scamming overlay. And even when she would participate in one and be scammed, and we would sit down and talk to her about it, and she would say, no, I won't do this anymore, then she would do it again. Mm-hmm. And she was losing, and in her mind, investing for a better return, and be scammed again and again. At one point, she was in the process of paying for, I don't know, $10 million that she was supposed to have won. But of course, she had to pay multiple times for the taxes and the shipping and all these things.
Right, that's what was in this letter.
Yes, and but she recognized that the person who would follow up calling her for the money was becoming really, really aggressive to the point that he threatened her life. And she became very scared. So she was living in a North Carolina small town. She called my sister, who actually lived just across the street, and they got the sheriff to come at a time when this person said he was going to call back. The sheriff was sitting there listening to the phone call, and the sheriff got on the line with this fellow and said, obviously, he said, you're doing things illegally, and I'm going to come after you. And he said, you'll never get me. After I hang up, I'm gone. You're never going to trace me. And that was, I'm talking about 5 or 6 years ago. Has there been any breakthrough in international? I'm sure these guys were in all over the world.
I mean, that kind of scam is very, very prevalent. And I have been in people's homes doing investigations when the phone is ringing repeatedly. And the person I'm interviewing simply appears to be unable to keep from answering that call. And those people have later told me it's all right because I'm marrying the person that's been calling me on the phone. I know that they do threaten people. I know that they are very aggressive. And I did get on the phone with one of them once. And I didn't say I was going to come after him, but he just basically said, "Who are you? I don't need to talk to you." They're very, very bold. And that's probably a scam that's getting an increasingly large number of people. And most of those people are offshore. They're not in this country. And it would be very hard to prosecute them.
And even trace it, though, is the...
Even find them, yes, to prosecute them.
Yep.
So what steps can people take? I'm kind of jumping ahead, but it just seems so...
Well, the first thing is don't engage with solicitors. And also, if you've already engaged with solicitors and you think maybe I did something wrong, but people will think I'm silly or they'll think I'm stupid if I tell them that I've gotten involved in this, don't feel ashamed of what you've done. Talk to your daughter, talk to your neighbor, your friend, whoever you trust, and let them know. And you can get your name on do not call lists. There's national do not call lists so that fewer solicitors will call. Most of the people that fall victim to this are home a lot, especially during the daytime, and many of them are lonely and socially isolated. So they're glad to have a phone call from anybody, and they begin to engage with these people.
Do you find that people who maybe don't have children, who aren't fortunate, like your mom, Alana, to have a child who's looking after them, are even more likely to fall suspect?
Well, if they're socially isolated and they don't have a support system like a daughter or son or good friends, they're absolutely more likely. Also more likely if they're mentally ill, and also more likely if there have been cognitive changes. For instance, if there's been a stroke, if the person is developing symptoms of some sort of dementia, if there is some other medical condition that's somehow affecting their ability to think clearly, they're going to be much more apt to be unduly influenced by somebody.
So this, I guess, would be a great indicator then of why the senior scams are happening more so than with maybe younger people.
Absolutely. And also because seniors are often concentrated. So if you're a predator and you hang around a retirement center, you're going to find seniors. And you might just be able to meet one of them and insinuate yourself into that person's life. Or, if you live in Leisure World can be a great place to live, but it's also a great place to be a predator. And sometimes your caregivers become your predators.
So they're a self-identified group of people.
Yeah.
Versus having to sort through the masses.
That's right.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have you share more about what happened with your mom, Alana, and kind of where you went from there after finding out about this and what the next steps were. And Denise will get into more tips that people can take with them to perhaps not fall prey to these lovely direct mail things and a variety of other scams that you can talk with us about. And we'll be right back.
Now, some action from the courts. Billie Jean King renewing her rivalry with Arthritis. First set, furious volley, and right to the net for a winner. Beautiful forehand there. Arthritis, stunned. And here, match point. Billie Jean with the ace, taking it in straight sets. Afterwards, a jubilant Billie Jean King.
Tennis is a weapon for me with arthritis. There's nothing like it for me to hit a ball, run to the ball, anytime, any court. I'm ready. Let's go.
What's your weapon against arthritis? Find out at fightarthritispain.org.
Welcome back to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics impacting seniors and their families. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton, and I'm joined today by Alana Davidson and Denise Gambrell. Welcome back. Thank you again for being here today. We kind of left off where we were talking about the different scamming scenarios and what people can look for, and I wanted to go back to you, Alana, and have you talk with us a bit more about, in your mother's situation, what was her reaction when she learned that she was scammed? How did she deal with it?
Oh, she was furious, and she was furious that she would let this happen. However, and she would say, I'm not going to do this again. But she did. She did it over and over and over again. And so we tried to do several things. One, because Tana lived across the street, she would go through her...
And Tana is...
Oh, I'm sorry. Tana, my sister,
okay.
Lived across the street. She would go through the mail, and she would try to get to the mail before my mother did. And my mother wasn't happy with this at all, but she tried to sort through the mail. We worked with Mother's Bank. We all had a very close relationship with Mother's Bank. They treated Mother like she was part of the family. They cared a great deal about her. They knew these scams were going on, but their attitude at the time, and this was now 5 years ago, was that this was her right to do whatever she wanted. But we had asked them, if Mother came to the bank and asked for a cashier's check, to please call Tana immediately. But that just didn't work out. You know, there are lots of tellers, and that just did not work out at all. But I understand Denise can tell us a little bit about what has happened in the banking industry since in the last 5 or 6 years, which sounds very encouraging.
Great.
Yeah, there have been developments. There's been a lot of work to try to get the banking industry on board, because like with your mother, a lot of the people in banks know their customers. They've been customers for years. And they're the ones that notice these unusual banking activities, withdrawals for $500, $1,000, $4,000 that happen repeatedly and unusually, or increasing numbers of debit withdrawals at the bank machine. And they have been reporting to us. There's now reporting requirements for banks. So while it's not perfect, there's a lot more reporting going on than there was 5 or 6 years ago.
And what are they required to report to you, and what situations?
They're calling and saying, if I had a call, we got a call the other day that a client came and said that $14,000 was withdrawn from her account and then $11,000, and that her condo was sold. Oh. They reported that because, you know, who knows whether she gave any permission for any of those things to happen. Mm-hmm. So far in that investigation, from the client's point of view, when I go out to see her, she tells a very reliable sounding story about her foreknowledge of the condo being sold, in fact, of her request that it be sold, and that she understood what that money was used for, but that she did not know that somebody had taken power of attorney over her financial affairs. And this was the same person that she had delegated to sell her condo, because she's in a nursing home. She said as soon as she realized that, she left the nursing home, she went and she revoked the power of attorney and said that she felt she'd sent a powerful message and that they would not be trying to control her financial affairs in the future.
Do you know if she notified the bank about the revocation of the power of attorney?
Probably not, but she notified me.
Okay.
So the bank now has dispatched its responsibility. Sometimes they do follow up with us, but other times they just make the report. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a more specific report, and other times it's more ambiguous, and you can't get any further information from the bank.
Was this a power of attorney, I'm just curious, one that was prior to October of 2010 with the new
No, this just happened. This was very recent.
So it was
in the last year or so. Yeah, it was new.
It was a new one that was witnessed and notarized?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't sound like it was witnessed and notarized. So that's the part I don't know yet.
I find that quite curious, because I have to say, in my practice, I'm finding it really difficult for some of my clients to even use a power of attorney at the bank that are properly executed. They're witnessed by 2 witnesses and they're notarized. Mm-hmm. That's true. So it's just astonishing to me that somebody was actually able to use one that wasn't properly executed.
If they were, it would be very unusual, because I've had plenty of families tell me that they went with the power of attorney papers and the bank would not do business with them.
Yeah. Well, that's more the experience.
I'd rather have them err on that side than on the other.
Yes, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Right.
Which is unfortunately why we're here today.
Right.
Alana, what do you believe was the greatest pull that drew your mother into the scam?
Oh, I think everything came through direct mail. Started with direct mail. And so it would say that she won something, or generally it was that she won lots of money, big amount to make it worth her effort. And she would then send information, all kinds of information about herself,
right.
Her phone number, her address, so these people could come to her door, and knock on the door and talk to her directly. I don't know that she ever gave her Social Security number. I don't know whether she did or not, but she did not hold back on at least her phone number and her home address so that they could begin to talk to her then. And then her phone would ring off the hook.
Right.
And this is a case where she was alone. My father had died. She, I'm certain, enjoyed talking to these people. They're very smart. They're very skilled at what they do until you don't cooperate, and then they're mean and ugly.
And that happens a lot right after a major loss, especially the death of a spouse. That happened to my mother right after my dad died, and she was also mentally ill. And only by coincidence did one of us learn that she had agreed on the phone that she would sell her house to this scammer on the phone. And we dealt with that in a unique way. My brother got on the phone and threatened the people, and they never called back.
There you go.
That's not necessarily the recommended way.
I don't know. I think
but it worked.
Way.
Yes,
but
we'll go with it.
Normally I would recommend that somebody take legal action, and become a guardian of property if necessary, or otherwise pursue it in a criminal manner, and see if there's anything that can be done to stop this. But most importantly, caution people not to give personal information to anybody.
How do we get the message out to people who are isolated, who are the more likely victims of this exploitation?
It's very hard to get it out to the isolated. We might be able to put signs, say, in doctors' offices, because they probably are still going to the doctor, and generally they've had long relationships with their doctors, so they trust their doctors. If they saw something in the doctor's office like we've done for domestic violence,
Great idea.
somebody hurting you, call this number, whatever, I think that might be a good idea, because it's very hard to reach the isolated person.
I think that's a dynamite idea.
It is. It's fabulous. But so how could that come about? What would be a way of getting that kind of program implemented?
I think we'd have to continue with a major education campaign and, reach out to the doctors and hospitals and let them know what the prevalence of this problem is, because it's increasing all the time as the senior population increases.
And what comes to my mind as we're talking about this is the opportunity to even have educational materials, but have examples, like take my direct mail piece and say, did you get something that looks like this? That people can touch and feel.
Oh, absolutely.
So that they're experiencing what it is that they may be getting in the mail, to have a sense of, oh, maybe this is a scam then, because, until I got this today, I had not seen something that looked as legitimate as this direct mail piece.
Well, and think about it. You're even thinking programmatically about the issue.
Right.
You're an attorney. You're very sophisticated, and yet you had to read it a couple of times to make certain in your own mind
Absolutely.
that it was not valid.
And people who have worked all their lives and have worked hard and have finally retired think, oh, my ship has come in. And they believe this. They read it more than once, perhaps, but they believe it. And I would caution all of those people to just remember That old saying, there's no free lunch.
Yeah.
Because there isn't.
And if it's too good to be true,
It's probably not.
right, right, yes.
It sounds as if we need, while the message has got to be delivered locally, we need a national effort among seniors organizations, maybe even AARP or something at that level, to initiate a broad discussion of it, with then the implementation of their local. I'm not organizing for AARP, but I'm just trying to think of the national.
They're going to round you up, Alana. They're coming to get you.
But
I love it.
It's a major, as you pointed out, it's a major national issue.
Yeah.
But the message probably is best delivered locally as well, or
Right.
reinforced locally.
Yes, well, I guess it's start local, then go global, or
Maybe.
there's some expression like that.
Right.
But I would love to be behind or support in some way that program to be able to at least introduce the education piece in doctors' offices. Because I think that's a great idea, because the people who are isolated, what's the one thing that they're probably going to do is go to the doctor, and they're probably going to wait a little while.
Well, I mean, it is a very thin line, and it is very difficult to do. I don't have major suggestions for families when you see that, other than if you do have a question about it and you feel like you're trying to do something about it and you're getting nowhere, that you should call your local Health and Human Services office and, talk to somebody there who will give you some direction. Because like you said, this does not have to be somebody who is having trouble functioning in any other identifiable way. But something happens to the person when they become engaged in these scams, and they start to lose capacity to deal with their finances. But
Exactly.
everything else looks great, and it sounds great. And of course, that person will tell their family member or friend without taking a breath that they should stay out of their business.
And Denise, if someone wanted to get in touch with you and wanted information about getting help for someone they thought might be exploited, or somebody who's concerned that they may be exploited themselves, how can they get in touch with you?
They should call our intake department at 240-777-3000. And somebody will either talk directly with them or return their call shortly.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here today. I think this was really helpful for me to find out what someone can do and what the signs are to look for. And again, thank you both for being here. Please contact me at seniorsolutions@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time.